I see you got a different mask too.
Well, I've been wearing this one, you know, there. I brought that one in case it gets too hot, but it's actually a little chilly in here.
Hey, Stephen.
Yeah,
I didn't go
On
too
your email
outrageous.
there?
I might do
Don't
that
go
the
ahead,
next
if
time
you're
if
in
we
a
got
rush.
one more meeting.
there you go, yeah. I forgot my pen.
Cause I think it's streaming to the Facebook, it's not as stable.
I got my clear one there though.
Cause I think that's why they have all these little glitches.
Can't wrap that, yeah.
It makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, I might need to.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, I think the streaming directly to the Facebook is causing the problem.
It is cold. Is that heat? Like it
Yeah,
heats
I
on?
got my computer set up and phone, so
Oh my God. Like we go from like burning up to freezing.
Sheriff, how are you?
This room is never just comfortable.
No, you go from like same time. Golly, I'll go get my coat.
Yep.
It's live right now. It's live
When
now.
it comes to like spreadsheets, you know, but
Oh, yeah, they just turned it on.
I can get more work done away from the office and everything.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good.
I set her up, that started in March. I set her up. All that back there,
Yeah. Yep. Right.
It's all electronic.
And the one thing I didn't do was have my mail, physical mail brought to the house, you know, that filed it on it. So I got over it. Ernie, Frank,
Morning. Ernie, Taylor.
What are you guys into?
How you doing?
hiding out.
That you found us. Well, I you found us. I'm getting ready to go in a meeting.
Jailer, did you smoke one of them yet?
No, but I did drink it, but I didn't, I was scared to do that. Then I was scared I'd have to go through the drive-through, so. But I'm gonna get the recipe from you for it.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy.
Is this the smoked one in the ribeyes? Yeah.
Is that primary? Oh, man, it's good.
I couldn't find a decent recipe, and my number one recipe go-to was on vacation, bread. That won't bother him.
I still had text message, Ernie.
Well,
Little COVID didn't stop me. I've got a standing rib roast Christmas together right down the freezer. Frank, I have one of those for you if you need it, or?
no, I'm fine.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Just that comes straight off the tree.
You get your jacket?
I think I might have to go get one.
Huh?
I must tell you, Robert.
Yeah.
I can blow it up on my computer screen to
I
read
said
it.
it's going from cold in here to.
That's what I said. I
I
said
said
it's
it's
either
I mean,
like
hotter.
burn it up or freeze it. We don't have it in
Well,
between.
I'd rather be cold than be hot.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're hot, you can't.
It's miserable.
Let's look at it with what we've got.
Yep.
I don't know when this one, John, I love
Be
it.
fine.
I have no idea.
Put it on.
I'll be the
Judge, how
last
are
one
you?
to know.
Yeah, well,
You
he
took
did.
care of that stuff too. Ernie.
Go, Burl.
Good.
Pretty good. Live stream, I went ahead and shared it.
We'll just see where we're at.
I don't think that's, yeah, I think it's gonna stay with it. At least I hope so. I shared it.
Yep. Yep. What's that?
Where's Janet?
I think they are. Yeah, I don't know
Her mother
what.
found it over here.
Really?
Thompson's this morning or last night, but.
Hmm.
Yes.
We'll get, I have every confidence the judge will get all he can, just however, I get distributed the rest of the department.
Will you?
Right, yes, sir. It's all pretty finished.
It's cold in here.
Hot in the bathroom, I'll tell you that.
There's that completed book, if you wanna look through it. In there, call me.
That's right.
You ready for Monday night?
Monday night, what's Monday night? Oh, yeah, no, are you ready? That's the question.
He's going on in States.
Yeah. You'll just need one. There you go.
If you could join me in a historical prayer. These are the words of Mark Herringshaw, and this is in honor of December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy, Pearl Harbor Day. Dear God, not everything that happens in your world reflects your goodness and grace. You have given us freedom to choose, and with that freedom, sometimes we choose to do evil. We remember a time of great evil in our world. We remember World War II. We also remember those who stood their ground against great evil, those who fought here at home and on the battlefronts to ensure evil would not prevail. We thank you that in the hour of need, you gave men and women the strength and resolve to stand, whatever the cost. May those brave souls who still remain with us today feel your hand of favor and strength. In their last years on earth, give them renewed hope and an awareness of our gratitude for their bravery and sacrifice. May we never forget them. May you honor them according to the grace you gave in those days and according to their response to that grace, then and now. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Now the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk for the roll.
Magistrates Thompson. Here. Constantopoulos.
Present.
Blanton.
Here.
Davis.
Present.
Elkins.
Present.
And Graham is out.
It appears we have a quorum. We'll now move on to item number 5, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6, consider approval of the minutes from the November 25th, 2020 fiscal court meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 7, public comments. Oh, thank you, Joe. We have Joe Barnes of Sidwell Lane.
Okay, I'm here again today for trying to get the project of the placement of the courthouse jail. I think that a nice and slow display of the bill, with the wheel included on the lawn of the front lawn of the courthouse, would show pride in our county and our community. It would draw attention from people visiting our county and our city. And back before this virus, all last winter and throughout, I spent a lot of time visiting the places around our county where people in our county congregate for breakfast and lunch. I've been to Golf Corner, Pilot View, Sherry's Cafe, Fox's at Kraft, the Dairy Queen, and Bargains on Broadway. This is popular places for our people from out of the county to come for breakfast and lunch and stuff. As you know, I spend a lot of time down at D&S Hardware. Got some friends that meet down there every morning, and a lot of people come and go out of there, and I question people. And along with some of the other business owners in the county, just about everyone that I've talked to have agreed that the bill should be displayed in front of the courthouse. Other than I had a few that said it should be put back where it belongs, but we know that's not going to happen. So it's, I've talked to people, friends at church, and a lot of friends that I used to work with the East Kentucky Power Company. And like I said, just most people I've talked to agree that the bill should be displayed in front of the courthouse. At last meeting, we had a photo show there of a little design that it was just a rough drawing of what it may look like, you know, and I'm sure some of you remember that. Mr. Blank says in his survey that he's found people in the county wanted a place behind the courthouse. To me, I think placing it behind the courthouse on a one-way alley, that's just practically about what it is, an alley, where the only people that would see it would be people going to those 2 or 3 businesses back there and the jail. And we do have quite a few people that use the back entrance to the courthouse. But people just coming to our community and driving, looking at our community and everything are not gonna make that circle, and they're not gonna see the veil. So to me, I think this planted in the back, setting it back there up on a pile of brick would be, I think it'd just be a shame and a disgrace to me. So, my time's important to me, and whatever y'all decide whether I will have anything else to do with it or not. There's a lot of work to be done before we could ever even start. I mean, I've been told that if you all approve or disapprove, it will have to go before the planning and zoning and different things that'll have to be done before it could even, you know. Now, back before this virus, I did have some people that kind of talked about maybe having fund it, but this, you know, we all know this virus has changed a lot of things. I did have one guy that came before this all started, and he drew up a plan and gave me an estimate on it. That estimate was for about $29,000, but other people, a couple of others I've talked to have assured me, you know, that it could be done cheaper than that. Of course, that plan included a domed copper roof, which I think, you know, that we will probably go with a 10. If you all approve it, we will probably go with a 10 roof on it. Anyway, like I said, my time's important and I've got other things I can be doing. So today, I would like for you all to vote to make a decision, you know, for, you know, on where you'd like to see it put. And so, with that, I'm open for any questions that I could try to answer for you. If not, thank you and Merry Christmas. But I would appreciate it if you all would try to decide something today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Janet's not here today, but I see there's probably some other people who wanted to sign up for public comments, so since she wasn't able to help, I'll allow that.
Good morning.
Can you state your name and address?
My name is Will Mayer, 2490 Maymeter Road. I'm the Executive Director of CART Coalition. CART Coalition is dedicated to advancing smart growth, sustainable economic development, and government transparency in Winchester, Clark County. We achieve our mission through well-informed advocacy, education, and outreach activities at City Hall, courthouse, and beyond. The CART Coalition seeks to be a community partner and provide valuable research, education, and analysis to foster a vibrant community for this and future generations of Clark Countyans. To that end, this year we have partnered with leading organizations and experts to undertake studies on several land use issues of countywide importance. I'd like to discuss with you very briefly the process surrounding the industrial scale solar developments that have been proposed for Clark County's agricultural zone. As Planning Commissioner Sarah Glenn stated in last week's Planning Commission meeting, this issue has been mishandled from the start. Recent decisions at the Planning Commission will not make it any better. The proposed process of 3 work sessions within the span of a single week, next week, with the express purpose to deny public input, is an affront to our cherished form of representative government. Serious questions arise. When will the required public hearing take place? And after they've expended considerable time drafting an ordinance without having spent considerable time researching the complexities of this monumental land use issue, how unbiased do we expect the Planning Commission to be? A number of the members of this fiscal court have expressed their position as being the taxpayer's friend, and I agree with that. But I would ask you, how many hours of the planning staff's time has been needlessly wasted on this process, which has been mishandled in this secretive way, which has denied public input since September of 2019. You received on Friday a letter from Park Coalition advocating for a moratorium on solar development and consideration of a solar ordinance for a period of 1 year. The purpose of this moratorium is threefold. It will allow a comprehensive plan to consider this issue at a time when it will be initiated and is scheduled to be initiated and funded. The moratorium will also allow the public to have input in a way that determines the fundamental question of whether or not we want this land use issue at all. There's considerable precedent for moratorium as hundreds of communities around the country have used them to study and make good decisions about industrial scale solar development. Finally, the moratorium will allow this community to overcome the complexities of COVID-19. The people of Winchester Park County deserve a process that they can be proud of. We call on you to enact a moratorium to allow this community to consider industrial scale solar development in a transparent way. Available for questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else?
Good morning. My name is John Rowland. I just moved here actually a little over a year ago to 1878 Gay Edge Road, and that's where my wife and I currently reside. And I need your attention right here, right now. I'm a former teacher, principal, facilities director. I retired from Bullitt County Schools in those roles. I also, 16 years later, retired from Southern Indiana Schools, Charlestown High School in Clark County, Indiana. So I desperately know how to hold attention, to keep your attention. One of them is eye contact. Now, as a representative of my wife and myself, I'm also a member of the Clark County Coalition. So I desperately want your attention. We found out last July that entities had been meeting with the industrial solar cooperatives, whoever they're called, without any input from the public at all. By the way, I sent an email to this group, City Council, Planning Commission. Two people responded. Since that time, with all of the meetings that have been held, no public input whatever. I attended a meeting at Christian church that no one was allowed to speak, or not, no, it was over here, Central Baptist, I'm sorry. No one spoke. 300 people there, and it was supposedly technical difficulties. I was ready to speak then, and I certainly am ready to speak now. By the way, there's a term that you may be familiar with, but may not have ever experienced it, and that term is surreptitious. By the way, that meaning is kept secret, especially because it would not be approved of. The 2018, in my understanding, the 2018 comprehensive plan was set in place with widespread community input, just the opposite of the proposed industrial solar amendment to the plan, supposedly written by entities or of the solar cooperative, or not the solar cooperative, but the industrial solar complex. Surreptitious, remember that word. My wife and I are not uneducated. 3 college degrees, I've owned my own business, and she does too. I'm not an attorney. I just know right from wrong. As a teacher, I tried to develop the skills, analytical skills, in my students. In other words, look at all the facts and determine further action from the data. The current data about industrial solar developments is slowly becoming more clear as people look at all of the facts. Without deep, heady government subsidies, the solar industry cannot be profitable. Those solar subsidies will someday disappear. The mining of raw materials, and here's the teacher in me. The mining of raw materials, by the way, we don't see raw materials, do we? We don't see the holes in the ground that they produce. Just a thought. Copper, cadmium, aluminum, iron, and rare earth elements result in increased cost and environmental destruction. Green energy is not really green and consumes vast quantities of energy to build. At obsolescence, the devices, the solar devices, the panels and so on, the batteries and so on, are unusable and much is not recyclable. The land that solar development takes up does not produce near the energy on farms that would be converted to industrial solar. And by the way, the food that's produced on many of the farms now, cattle and so on, food is important to most of us. Just a thought there. The tax benefits of the local government are minimal. The energy from industrial solar is not utilized locally. Natural beauty and ecology are destroyed. Land is taken out of production for 20 to 30 years, increasing the cost of food and encouraging factory farms. The local government agency is stuck with decommissioning and environmental costs. Long-term local jobs are minimal. The industrial solar developer wants to move as fast as possible to pass an ordinance before the subsidies are cut. Please, friends and neighbors, remember the term surreptitious. Ensure that this process is open and honest, that people listen, and that the public has real input. That's what we ask. My granddad, may God rest his soul, was a farmer for all his life. From Graves County, Kentucky, Mayfield, Kentucky, you may have heard of it. I grew up on just a little farm there. But Granddad was very wise. And when something just sounded too good to be true, he made a statement that has stuck with me for over 60 years now. He said, and I'm going to paraphrase just a bit about the industrial solar situation. If you think that the industrial solar deal is really good for Clark County, then here's what my granddad would say. You're as full of stuffing as a Christmas turkey. Okay? Again, I'm open for questions and be happy to talk with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, Judge, Fiscal Court. I'm Patrick Kirby. I was here last month discussing the CDBG Economic Development Project with Wild Brands that we are working in concert with the Clark County and Winchester Industrial Authority. I just wanted to give you all an update about how that is going. We are ready to submit our finding of no significant impact to the environment for that to Frankfurt. Our next step will be to have a public hearing on this project. I would prefer to do that via Zoom meeting, which is what I've done the whole year, basically. It's been a little bit easier for people to do it that way. And interested parties can email. What they do is they'll email me. I'll send them a link to that. The industrial authority will pay for that advertisement. It'll run for a week, or it'll run a week before we have a public hearing, so we give people time to get ready for that, to get an invitation to do that. What I would like to do after that is at the next fiscal court meeting, present a resolution to file the grant application. So in the meantime, what we can do is review the grant application. If anybody on the court has issues, they can contact me. I've reached out to Janet to send her a legally binding agreement draft that you all probably want to take a look at and make sure that looks good to you all. It's pretty boilerplate stuff though too. Does anybody have any questions about this project or the trajectory of it or any other pieces of that?
I'm confident that the project has been covered. I do have some questions maybe about the hearing and the time and the constraints. If you could meet with the county attorney, just make sure all that's straightened out in advance. We'll see what we can do to get you on a future agenda.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I've been following the guidance from the Department of Local Government on these, and I think it'll make it easier for your all facilities people here to not, we don't have much random, we don't have much show up. It might be 20 people, it might be 50 people. So we don't want somebody to, come in on unnecessary trouble. I found that these Zoom public hearings actually are a little bit more, they're not as easy to manage, but they're easier to get more community input. So we'll work that out, and if we want to go different direction, we can do that as well. But I just wanted to give you all an update.
Okay.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see anyone else who's not a usual. We'll now move on to review of the treasurer's report. Any questions for Alicia? Okay. Item number 9, consider approval of the transfers.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 10, consider approval of the bills list. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 11, a note in your minutes. Indigent burial, David Connor, date of death, 11/26/2020. Item number 12, consider approval to pay training incentives to the following elected officials. Well, I'm going to break this down. Item 12A, Magistrate Chris Davis. Do I have a motion? That's why I broke it down into 3 separate votes.
So motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 12B, do I have a motion to?
No, my refusal.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Magistrate Constantopoulos has recused himself. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. I'll recuse myself from item 12C.
Motion, second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 13, review and consider approval of the proposed 2021 budget for the Clark County Clerk's Office. Michelle Turner. Any questions for Michelle? Oh, I guess I need a motion. Sorry, Daniel.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion or questions for Michelle? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 14.
Hold up, is
We
that
need
going
to-
for the annual order also?
We need to do
Oh,
probably
okay.
do a separate
A
motion.
separate
for
motion for the order.
Motion to approve the order.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Now moving on to item number 14, review and consider approval of the proposed 2020 budget amendment and amended annual order for the Clark County Sheriff's Department.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. I'll entertain a separate motion for the order.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 15, consider acceptance of the web hosting and supplemental agreement with American Legal Publishing for Code of Ordinances.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? I will just note that this binder in front of you is some of their handiwork, and this is to keep it updated from year to year, correct?
That is correct, and just a quick overview, the ordinance is everything through 2019, so we'll still have to scan over. Once we read this and codify it, and hopefully we'll have the ordinance at our next meeting, I think, to do that. This is from 73, 74, all the way through 2019, so we'll have to scan everything in for 2020. And then web hosting on that's $4.95 per year. We'll have a link on our website to where people can click on it, and it'll take them to the site to where they can search all these ordinances. Plus, that'll include updating these books. So every time we pass an ordinance, we'll send it to them. They'll send it back to tell them exactly what to replace in the book, where it goes, and then they automatically update it online.
Thanks for your work on that, Daniel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 16, consider approval of an order to change the status of a road department employee from part-time to full-time. Do I have a motion? Is there a second? Any discussion?
I would note that the effective date is today. I appreciate that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries.
Who was the first one on that one?
Yes, Davis and Elkins.
Thank you.
Item number 17, consider approval of an order relating to additional premium establishing a maximum aggregate claim liability for the Clark County employee health care. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Just a little bit of explanation on this. Is this what we discussed in the last meeting?
Correct. Now, this basically will,
Backstop in case there's hit that 90.
this is a fail-safe to our fail-safe insurance.
Magistrate Davis, if you look on that first page where it said old amount, that was the original estimate they had given us what the premium was going to be. And then when we approved it, they gave us the updated premium, which was actually a considerable amount less at $435,751.80. And then if we add in the total aggregate of the 1.2, means that would be the total cost from this, including the premium that we paid, would be $452,465. So it's actually cheaper than what we originally thought it was going to be. So the net's going to be $16,000 to have that aggregate on there, and then we can cancel that at any time. So if we get 6 months into this and we think that it's not worth it, we can cancel it, or we can keep it as long as we want to.
Thank you for your explanation.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 18, consider approval of an order establishing an insurance fund for Clark County employee benefits. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
My understanding is Alicia would like to discuss that a little.
I just wanted to bring up that we also would need to discuss, how we're gonna fund the fund, for the employer side of this. We need to discuss how much each of the funds are gonna pay based on the amount of employees, or whether we'll do like a lump sum. I would like, or if we'll just fund it like as needed, or however that you all would like to establish that, because we need to get this started so that we are prepared for January for claims to come in.
Alicia, what do you recommend? Do you recommend doing it on a monthly basis, or a bi-weekly basis, or?
I would
Or-
prefer a lump sum, and that way that we aren't restricted by meetings, because I will need to do like transfers for each of these. I would prefer a lump sum basis, but I know that that doesn't work for all funds.
I don't think she would have independent authority to issue warrants on the account, though.
No, I think she'd have to
Right, that's
prepare a
what I'm saying.
transfer order for the next
Yeah.
meeting or shortly thereafter, one or the other.
Even if you did a lump sum, I still think there has to be fiscal court approval to issue checks on the account, so I don't know that alleviates the issue that she's addressing, that to put a lump sum in there would free up having to come back or whatever the discussion.
Would that not be in the
was there.
standing order?
You don't have a standing order for that today, do you? You don't have such a fund.
Well, I was just thinking that would be under general expenses, but I guess we can amend the standing
We
order
could
if
add
we
it
need to. Okay. So, we'll need to talk to DLG about potentially amending the standing order if that's not covered in it. And then if you would like to make a suggestion for a future transfer order to coincide with that,
Okay.
we can move forward with it. Okay. Anyway, back to the original issue. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
There's a blank. What are we gonna call this?
What would you like to call it? I know we have to do different colors for the checking and all that.
Is the insurance not okay? Insurance fund?
Health insurance fund?
I don't wanna call it just like a health insurance, because we've also got dental and vision in there, and
Okay.
it's gonna be weird.
Okay, so under section 2 on the provided order, in the blank, let's insert just insurance to keep it somewhat open for health, dental, and so forth. And I'll note there's a little typo, TH, we'll put an E on the end of that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 19, consider approval of an order approving hiring a part-time custodian for the courthouse and annex. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Just I had a couple of questions about this. One of the questions, or at least the assertion, was that maybe we already have a full-time custodian, which I'm sure we do still, and a cleaning service. We don't have a regularly scheduled cleaning service, do we?
We have a floor waxing service that comes in once a week on Wednesday evenings.
But it doesn't really clean, it just waxes the floor.
Correct.
What's that cost?
I think it's, do you know the exact number? It's around $10,000 a year, but
I do not know the exact number, I'm sorry.
ballpark $10,000 a year.
And we typically, in the past, have had a full-time and a part-time custodian, is that correct? Or?
That has been the case in the past, but you all would know that better than me, actually.
Yeah, well, I think we had, and I just wanted to confirm that what I thought was correct. I have nothing further to say.
Okay.
Judge, is the plan to keep both the cleaning service, the wax floor, and also the part-time custodian?
Not necessarily. Obviously it depends on what the skills are of the part-time custodian. My understanding is he is a former truck driver and has some experience in machinery. If he perhaps could become educated on how to operate the buffering machine, it's possible that he could help out in that regard, but I'm not making any promise. Any further discussion?
Judge, I'm still of the opinion that one person can handle this job, especially with the cleaning service coming in on Wednesday night, so I'm gonna be against this one.
Okay. Further discussion?
Where does it put us, Judge, in terms of our budget, maybe treasurer assist with that question, based on what we're gonna, what the proposal to pay this person 24 hours a week, $10 an hour, so.
That's probably,
$250 a week.
it's about $10,000.
Can I get back to you?
It's no rush, just,
Okay.
you'll find it.
I'm just trying to find the custodian line of it. are at 40% of the courthouse and jailer salaries of the budget, and at 50% of the annex salaries. So I would assume that his time would be split between the two,
Mhm.
since he's going to be for both.
Yeah, I would say, based on her calculation there, that we would probably need to do a transfer within the last 2 months of the year. If we're at 40% on one and roughly 50% on the other.
We're about 45% of the way through the year, I'd say.
Any further discussion?
I think you all know where I stand on the cleanliness and upkeep of the courthouse, and I think we've made a few improvements over the last couple of weeks. I'd like to wait and see how that pans out before we hire an additional person. Maybe if you wanted to do this, maybe make it a temporary part-time custodian, but I'm not in favor of another position, at least at this time, till we see how we make progress on what we discussed a couple of weeks ago.
I don't have a problem at all amending it to temporary part-time custodian. That sounds like a good idea, Robert. I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Not that I'm in favor of it, but I mean, that was just an option. But that would certainly make me feel a little better should this pass.
Okay.
Do you think the employee's okay with it, or the potential employee's okay with it being a temporary?
I think so. Unfortunately, Janet's not here to give further background, but from my discussions I've had with her, he's just some retired individual who wants to have something to do.
Judge, my request would be that should this pass today, some effort is made to train this person on the buffer, to clean the floors, because I think there's potential there to not save money, at least eliminate the service if we've got an internal employee who's doing it. I guess the one advantage that I see to this is that with just having the one custodian here, obviously there may be times where he's on vacation, or he's out sick, or he's, taking time off, or unavailable at the moment.
We'd have to agree for.
Well, I know, but I mean, so that we've got one for, my thought is, so we've always got, at least most of the time, have one person in each building, because I think typically there's probably plenty to do, if they're doing what needs to be done, so you would have somebody here most, if not all the time, which I like that idea, although this is just a temporary part-time position, so. I can go along with it, Judge, but I would like to see some effort made to train this person to clean the floors and operate that buffer, maybe into something we can renovate.
Judge, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the cleaning service buffs the floors. I think they just mop them, don't they?
That's all they do.
Yeah, but I think buffing would take place of it. That's the way it's been explained to me.
And the cost of it is $180 a time that they come.
So once
So
it's
this is
$200 a week, yeah, close to $10,000.
This person is part of the, I guess, what would be considered your staff, correct, Judge?
That's a legal question.
What is it? I mean, I'm just stating, or I wanna state that I feel like that you deserve the leeway to make this decision if you decide that we need a part-time temporary custodian, and I support that. I think you deserve that leeway.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
I think that's Thompson and Blanton on the nay. That motion carries. Item number 20, consider approval of a resolution to address transportation funding needs throughout the Commonwealth. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve for discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
And now we'll have discussion. I'll give a little bit of background information on this. For those of you who are active in the Magistrates Association, they, along with the County Judges Association, consistently request, and that's putting it, you know, shortly. They consistently over and over request that we look at this resolution, and they've been very suggested over the past couple months. So put this before you for your consideration. It involves the road tax changes to be made to it to increase the fund that would be on gasoline. And if anyone who has attended their workshops probably has an idea of where this goes. And there's also some supporting documentation, if you've had a chance to look at your file or the email that we sent out last night that they sent us. I guess over the weekend we received it. But, you know, certainly I think everyone knows my position on taxes in general, but they asked me to ask you, so go ahead. Any discussion?
Go ahead, George. You started.
Go ahead, Magistrate
I
Hopkins.
was just gonna say, I think that it deserves a vote of the court, although I don't support it. The reason I second it. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Those of us that were previously on the court, this has been talked about at every conference and every meeting, and now they've gone the route of the resolutions to get the support from the fiscal courts during this pandemic and financial crisis that's going on across the country and with our restaurants and everything. I just don't think now's the time to be raising taxes on gas, the gas tax, first of all. But not only that is that this is tied to a floor where as gas prices fluctuate, the more revenue that's collected, and I think gas prices are soon, we're going to start trickling up anyway, which is going to solve that. But I can't support raising any taxes on this.
This is similar to the funding for 911 with more people having cell phones. Again, more people are having electric cars, so that there really needs to be a different formula and a different method of funding roads with the changes that are occurring. So I don't know that an increase in gas tax would solve the problem, because there's going to be a continued decline in the usage of gas. So
I think, Judge, I'll just say this, I appreciate the work that the Judges Association and Magistrates Association do, put on some good programs and advocating for counties. But I have to say, this is probably one of the most tone-deaf things I've ever witnessed in an economy this bad. That they would be jumping up and down at these conferences, and we've all watched them, those of us that have sitting on these Zoom webinars and so forth, clamoring for us to advocate to our state representatives, state senators, that they raise the fuel tax. They're raising the gas tax. That's what this is all about. I know road funding is tied to that, and we have to fund our roads and infrastructure, but we need to figure out a better way to do it. And I agree with Magistrate Blanton, with the shift and going from gas and diesel to electric, or at least some people are, or something that probably will never switch. You probably will see less revenue, but the state has other revenue streams, which they have mismanaged on so many levels over the last several decades. That here we are in the middle of an economic crisis, and trying to get, people back on their feet, businesses on their feet, and they're, clamoring for the legislature to raise the fuel tax. And again, that's maybe one of the most tone-deaf things I've ever witnessed. And I've watched politics for a long time, but the associations need to get on board with trying to make Kentucky more economically competitive and not just throwing more taxes on people. And that's a very short-sighted way to get to where we need to be. But I appreciate, Judge, the pressure that you're under to put this on agendas, and I know for a fact they've been asking all the fiscal courts to consider the resolution. Maybe some of them have passed it, which that's up to each individual court, people voting on those rules. So there's no way I can support it. In fact, the only thing I would support is a resolution that demands or asks just the opposite, which is that they don't put a moratorium on raising fuel taxes, at least for the next year or two, or the next budget cycle. I certainly could support this.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Nay. The ayes have it.
The nays
Or I'm sorry, the nays have it, I'm
Nays have
sorry.
it.
Thanks, Greg.
We're proud of voting no.
Okay. Item number 21. Oh, I will forward that and let them know that we voted against it. I figure they do need to hear something from the other side of the argument.
Thank you, Judge, for putting it on the agenda. Again, I think it deserves a vote of support, but I think they need to hear what we have to say.
No problem at all. Item number 21. Consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a tract of land located at 1625 Mount Sterling Road from agricultural A1 to planned development, PD. To have a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Judge, I'm gonna note it in the record and I'm gonna recuse from this.
Any further discussion?
Page 2, section 1, third line down. It says this property is located at 1995 McClure Road, so I'm confused.
I think you're looking at a different one, maybe.
No, it gives you the rest of the next sentence down says 1625 Mount Sterling Road, and the deed description is the property conveyed from Quisenberry, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
I have
so I'm confused.
this was drafted by Mr. Thomas at Grant Rose and Pumphrey. I don't know.
I don't know who
if we're
drafted
allowed
it.
to amend these or
There may be at least
or
one
not.
mistake, I'm not certain. If I'm incorrect, I stand corrected, but the two don't make sense to me because it's got two different addresses.
Can we get clarification before the second reading? Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if it, I think probably the best practice would be to either table it or make sure you've got it cleared up for the second reading.
Where is that discrepancy from?
Page 2 at the
Page
top.
2, section 1, third line down, it says the property is located at 1995 McClure Road. Next section, section 2, says the property is located at 1625 Mount Sterling Road.
Basically, it's a clerical error. I think they've used a legal form. I'm sure Magistrate Davis is familiar with that.
Yeah, I see that. In fact, Judge, the other discrepancy is on section 1 that gives that incorrect address. They put CP Builders. I think CP is the
I think that's
Acton
right.
McClure Road project.
I think that's exactly right.
That needs to be, that's.
I wasn't gonna go that far, I just knew the addresses was wrong.
Now, that's, I had looked through these, the other night, CP Builders, Judge, that's on.
That's the McClure Road people.
So that's incorrect. And the other discrepancy, Judge, and when I looked at these on Clark County GIS, I think what they do is they import PVA records. I think both PVA and GIS has this as 7850 Veteran Memorial Parkway. The 1625 Mount Sterling Road, I couldn't get anything to pull up on that. Maybe I just putting it incorrectly, and again, I'm not. They've got the Veterans Memorial Parkway address, which I think is correct. I couldn't tell that any of this property fronted on Mount Sterling Road, maybe a small portion, but I just wanna make sure we've got the addresses correct, certainly McClure Road, the CP Builders, and the address.
Since there's so many errors, maybe we should table it to the next meeting and get it cleared up for you.
Well, I got no problem with the voting for it, but I think we need to clarify the addresses, but,
Certainly need to be-
I mean, we know what the title says and where it's at, but there's some discrepancies in the text, and that can be straightened out. I don't care one way or the other. Just wanted to note it before we approved it.
Well, I'd like to make sure that, this being an ordinance and all, it's gonna be put of record, that, we get it correct, and certainly the McClure Road thing, that the CP Builders mention needs to be, that needs to be, addressed, or I should say.
I guess my only concern is correcting the errors. If we table it, we'll move it back another 2 weeks, which will obviously disadvantage the developers. But of course, I don't think we could pass it as it is right now if this were a second reading, so I'm somewhat at a loss.
I think the motion to pass it at this reading could include an amendment of the language in the proposed ordinance to correct those two errors.
I'd be glad to make that motion. If it will take it.
And we'll return with a amended draft of it for a final reading at the second reading.
So
Okay. Were you the one who made the original motion, Magistrate Davis?
No, I think I was.
I was just asking, I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Okay, so you're accepting that as, you're gonna make a friendly amendment? Okay.
CP Builder should be changed to M ampersand M Bishop, comma, LLC, the applicant. The address is 7850 Veterans Memorial Parkway.
Okay. So that amendment being made, is there any further discussion?
Just,
Sure.
I think, I just want to be sure that the amendment here was to change that third line, 1995 McClure Road. Did you say 7850 Veterans Memorial Parkway or 1625 Mount Sterling Road? Or did you say both? In section 2, second line, it describes it both ways.
Both of them.
I don't object to using both, I just make the point that when I was looking at this on GIS, the correct address, GIS appeared to be 7850 Veterans Memorial Parkway. But if they claim a Mount Sterling Road address, I don't have a problem using that. So, of course, no McClure Road is just flat out wrong, so.
Mhm.
The issue is the property is not on McClure Road and it is not owned by M&M Bishop LLC. So those two items we know
Exactly.
need to be changed.
Got it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 22, consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a tract of land located at 1305 Irvin Road from agricultural A1 to planned development PD. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We should probably look through here just to make sure the same issue isn't present.
I think it looked okay. I read it pretty closely, so.
Okay. Looks good to me too. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 23. Consider,
I just noticed that on the agenda, those are backwards.
Yeah, they are. They are different on the agenda.
okay,
McClure Road was then Urban Road.
I didn't catch it.
the one we just voted on was McClure Road.
Mhm.
So on the agenda, let's change 22 and 23. Got that? Okay. Now Irvin Road. Or no, yes, Irvin Road. Consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance.
We just did Urban
No,
Road.
you're right. Consider the approval of the first reading of an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a tract of land located at 1995 McClure Road from agricultural A1 to single-family residential R-1C. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Question, Judge.
Sure.
My understanding, so did we not do McClure Road first and then? We should be doing the Irvin Road right now.
1305 Irvin Road.
You read McClure twice.
Yeah.
I read McClure first, Michelle. Which one did I read first?
You read McClure.
Well, the very first one was the one that has the mess up on, then the second one was Urban Road.
Mhm.
You even said
But
on
in
the
my
second one,
packet,
you wanna
it-
make sure it was right.
Mm-hmm. So,
I think we're now voting on the new number 22.
You read the.
I'm sorry, the new number 23.
You read the ordinance, it's Urban Road.
You read Urban Road.
You have to vote on it, you voted, I believe you said plural.
Yeah, I think we voted on the floor.
okay. So which one should we,
The new
is
number
it the one that we
23 should be-
read aloud, or should we just retract the vote and start over? What do you think?
Well, I think that you already considered the one and approved it.
Mhm.
So no need to go back to that. I think the one you're on now is on 1305 Urban Road. And as you begin to consider that, as with the previous two, the ordinance is designated as the City of Winchester ordinance.
Mhm.
On the first two, I'll bring an amended draft back here that says Clark County ordinance, and you can make that in your motion to approve on the second reading. But on this one, you might want to just go ahead and make that amendment before you approve it.
Well, they was noted, that's why I didn't bring them up, because they was already noted on here, so I assumed that was already in the works.
So we've got to make a motion for Urban Road, to approve Urban Road with the correction of,
Clark County ordinance.
Clark County ordinance.
I would make that motion for Urban Road, if that's what we're on, that's my understanding.
Yes, 23 is going to be Urban Road. We switched 22 and 23.
With-
So,
With correction,
With the correct, amending the title as a county ordinance.
so 23 should be consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance to change the zone and classification of attractive land on 1305 Irvin Road from agricultural A1 to planned development PD and county ordinance. I think we're all right now.
We need a second on my motion.
Yep.
Travis
Motion
Madison.
made by Magistrate Constantopoulos, seconded by Magistrate Thompson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries.
and I just wanna make sure, on the new 22, that was Elkins and Constantopoulos
On the
on the McClure Road.
McClure Road, I made the first, I don't know.
Oh,
who
I got
made the
Greg
second.
down. You had that too?
Yeah,
Greg, did you make that motion?
I'll be okay with making the second.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we change that, okay. So Constantopoulos first and then Elkins second. Thank you.
Okay, items number 24 and 25, we're going to continue to the next meeting. Item number 26, cancellation of the December 24th, which would be Christmas Eve, regular meeting at 6:30 p.m. You'll note that under next meeting, special call meeting will be December 22nd, 2020 at 9:30 a.m.
Judge, will you be considering your second reading on the ordinances at the next meeting?
I think that would be appropriate. Is there anything wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. I think the public should know from this meeting to the next when the second reading will be.
Okay, the second reading on the ordinances, number 21, 22, and 23, will occur at our next meeting, and that will be a special call meeting on December 22nd, 2020 at 9:30 a.m. Magistrate comments? Magistrate Graham's not here. Magistrate Thompson?
Judge, the only thing I have is I think we need to do something for Mr. Barnes. He's been here the last two meetings and asked us to make a decision for him. While I don't know that I'm in agreement with him, I think he deserves to give him an answer like that. That's the only thing I have.
Okay.
nothing, Judge, thank you.
Magistrate Elkins?
Nothing good.
Magistrate Davis?
Nothing at this time, Judge.
Magistrate Blanton?
Just a comment, Judge, and again, could be wrong. If at our next meeting, if we set our calendar for 2021 and we note those meetings that will have a conflict and set an alternate date, we won't have to have those special meetings. They could then be considered a regular meeting if we set that calendar So we won't have to consider these other meetings, special meetings. So if we could look at the calendar and avoid Thanksgiving for sure, and if there's any other dates, and go ahead and change those dates at our next meeting for the following year, I think we wouldn't have to call them special meetings. They would be the regular meetings.
The one issue that I have is I do believe that our meetings are set via the administrative code, so I'm not sure an order would be held superior to the code, but we'll look into that. I guess my comments, in speaking with the Department of Transportation, we've been allocated approximately $250,000 towards an environmental study. That is for the bypass extension. That comes from funds that the legislature set aside, I believe, during the last session. I've contacted Senator Paul, Senator McConnell, Congressman Barr, and I've worked with Senator Alvarado towards a build grant. That's what it's called, B-U-I-L-D. We're going to attempt to model ourselves after what was done in Bourbon County. And I'll just give you some background from speaking with their judge, what occurred over there. Once you get backing from the Transportation Cabinet, you get the impact study done, you then start filing for the grants. Now, typically, you don't get the grant in the first year. I don't believe they got it until the third time that they applied. But you have to have the environmental study done, and we were lucky enough to get that approved through Transportation. So I think we've taken the first giant step in the right direction in regards to federal grant funding. Now, obviously, things are going to change in Washington potentially, and hopefully that won't adversely impact us, but we're doing everything we can to get the bypass extended. And I think that's a significant step in the right direction. Another thing that I'll note, some of you have probably paid attention to the news in regards to some of the COVID orders and so forth. I think a lot of us on this court find some of the restrictions frustrating, at least in regards to family and religious gatherings. I'll note that Christmas is coming up. I'm hopeful that the governor will not extend some of those restrictions to what I consider to be a sacred and religious holiday. I have no qualms at all about saying that in front of the public, in front of a camera, or anywhere else. So I would urge anyone with decision-making authority to consider the fact that this is a very special holiday, and we do still have freedom of religion in this country. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Is there a second? Seeing none, do I have any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting stands adjourned. Our time is 10:33.
Record.
Much faster than I thought it would be.
What's going on, Frank?